Remember, hate the character, love the actor. Hey everybody, welcome back to the TV Corner. Today we are talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This is going to be my spoiler review of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm not going to do a spoiler-free just because a lot of the things that happen in here that are technically spoilers, they are big, but they're either things that we already expected to happen, or they're more about actually watching it in real time and not so much like just knowing what happened, you know what I mean? So the Falcon and the Winter Soldier obviously stars Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan as Falcon and Bucky Barnes, or the Winter Soldier, as they go up against this group called the Flag Smashers, basically a group of refugees who just want a world without borders like it was over the last 5 years while the snap had happened. So honestly, most of the characters in this show are a high. I think the characters are really what make this show, because it is a very gritty, realistic, real-world show compared to what we got in WandaVision, which was more fun and entertaining and TV and fantasy. And obviously, Sam and Bucky and their dynamic is front and center. Sam, we get a lot more of him as a black man in America trying to be a superhero, which says everything for itself. I mean, we know from our world today what that's been like for every black man in America trying to just survive, to be honest. And then Bucky, we get more of his character arc in terms of overcoming being the Winter Soldier and being brainwashed by Hydra. The things that he's done, he's trying to repay everybody for them. He's either trying to get revenge on these people, or he's trying to make up for what he's done in the past. And we see through therapy and the things that he does, he's not only trying to do what he can for other people, but trying to forgive himself as well. It's also really cool just to see that Bucky is like a person, because up until now he's just kind of been like a machine who like is part of the plot, but we've never really seen him as like a person just doing regular things. So that was really cool. And Bucky and Sam's dynamic of, constantly going back and bickering back and forth and hating each other, liking each other, being friends, being associates, work members, what are they? That was really great, their dynamic there, especially considering both of them were going through very serious things and they're both helping each other out, while of course mourning the loss of Steve Rogers as Captain America. Not his life, but as the superhero himself, and trying to figure out how to deal with this new Captain America, John Walker, who, to be honest, almost takes more of the spotlight in this show, which is really interesting. He is such a good character, like, in terms of a story. Like, he's not necessarily a good person. My friend Tim over at Art Apex, his channel, you should check out his channel, Art Apex. He just put out 1 or 2 video essays. He's just started it up. Please go give that a sub. He had a good point. He said Steve Rogers was a good person and he grew into a good soldier. John Walker is a good soldier, but he's not necessarily a good person, and he's trying to grow into that. The thing about John Walker is that he's got so much pressure on him to be this perfect Captain America, and he's got so much expectation of him. Plus, he's also seen some shit in war. And he's already got a lot of issues because of those two things already, that all of this other stuff that goes on throughout the series, and him taking the super serum and to be the best that he can and finally feel like he's doing something right for a change, all of these things mixed in with Lamar's death, you can understand why it happens. It's obviously not excusable. I don't necessarily think that he was a bad person, but just very, very flawed and conflicted. And we see that at the end, that he does, in the end, make the right decision. He doesn't go after revenge. He finally goes after, let me save these people, let me do the right thing, let me be the real Captain America. So that was really interesting, and I definitely think that they got that part of it right. Then at the end, I don't even remember her name. She kind of annoys the crap out of me. His Nick Fury comes up and makes him the U.S. agent, and I don't know how I feel about that, because I don't know. I just feel like we resolved his character, and now they're like trying to make more out of it. They're trying to like, I'm back. Well, no, you're not. I'm not quite sure how to feel about that. I don't really understand that. because I don't think I really know where that's going or what he feels his role is. Is he still going to be more of a vigilante now? Is he still good or bad? I'm not quite sure. And I feel like they're sort of trying to attach more onto that doesn't need to be there. Zemo is another character who comes back, and honestly, I think they did his character just right. Because while he didn't do anything necessarily bad, and it kept feeling like he was finally going to turn on them, and he never did, I think that's fine. Because honestly, his goal was to get rid of super soldiers and break up the Avengers. And he did that for a little bit, for a long time, actually. And once he got rid of the super soldiers here, there was nothing else for him to be angry about, really. He did his job and he was out of there. So if he could help Bucky and Sam do that, sure. And then he went to visit the memorial and he was like, all right, I'm good. I'll go with the Wakandans. What I don't understand is why he's in the cell, the floating cell that they were put in Civil War, because I thought he went with the Wakandans. They wanted to take him, and they did. So I was kind of confused about that. But overall, I think they did his character really well. The only thing I'm not a huge fan of is that, actually, I'm not really a fan of it at all, is that he's like royalty. Because while it's cool that he has all these connections and everything, and while it does make sense that in Civil War he has to have some sort of money to like get on all these planes and fly everywhere and make these bombs and all this other stuff, while I get that, he could have just had like a fortune or something. Him being royalty for me takes away some of the interesting parts of why he's the villain in Civil War. Because in Civil War, we think he's just this regular guy, and he took down this like the Avengers, just a regular guy, just with information and a little bit of money. But being royalty, it makes it a little less like anybody could take down the Avengers, and it makes it less impactful, less scary. Going back to the Wakandans too, the Dora Milaje are badass again, and Io. I mean, they're just all awesome. I mean, when they went up against John Walker and Lamar, I mean that was just cool. There are two other characters who are incredibly interesting. One is Isaiah, who he doesn't really get a lot of action, but he's very important to Sam's story about black superheroes and them getting overshadowed. And it was great that he got his recognition in the end. He was that foil for Sam to be. He was the one who not hid, but had to be hidden, who had to keep quiet and was just very, I don't care anymore. I just want to live my life. But Sam, he's like, what's the point of all that, of going through all of this, if I'm not going to then be the hero? So it kind of was that final push for him between that and John Walker's Captain America, the final push for him to become Captain America, which is so cool. It was awesome. That suit is amazing. And I love how he still has the wings, but he's also Captain America now. It's awesome. They should have called him the Eagle. That would have been so cool. And the final character, or I guess sort of characters, are the Flag Smashers, specifically Carly, who is their leader. I really like these villains because they're not villains. They are the antagonist, but they are not villains. They do a lot of bad things, but they are also very understandable. Obviously, they still shouldn't blow shit up. But I love that we spent time with these villains, that they were not one-dimensional or even two-dimensional. I loved that we had real reasons for them to be upset and angry. I loved that Sam took time to talk with Carly and that they were sort of had this mutual respect and trying to be on the same page, but it just wasn't working out. It makes it that much more real and deep and not like we're fighting a Thor the Dark World villain. The other high besides the characters is just the story. I mean, the story itself is really great. The themes that go with it, the messages, everything surrounding the shield and what that means. It's a very symbolic show. Everything has great meaning to somebody, and I loved the story. I loved how it put, Bucky and Sam in the center, because they're not two of the strongest Avengers for sure, but they were still able to have their own story within all of this other stuff and have their own difficulties, with Bucky trying to, forgive himself and admit to his friend that he did murder his son, even though it was because he was brainwashed. And Sam not only dealing with, the image of, I can't take up the mantle of Captain America for so many reasons, but also helping his family with this boat, selling this boat. It's such a small thing that you're like, this shouldn't be in an MCU show. This is such a small thing, but it was important. And it's very important to the character, to the story. It was great. I was very happy that they focused on stuff like that. The MCU just consistently proves that there's always more to tell. Even after all this big end game stuff, there's something after. We need a new Captain America. We need a new this, whatever. There's always something else that happens. So I think a common low between WandaVision and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier is that finale. The weirdest thing is that Marvel is actually, for their TV shows, their episodes leading up to the end are super great, and then their ending episodes are okay, which is really weird considering that normally it's the opposite. Normally the end is like, wow, but getting there is like, okay, this is pretty good. It just goes to show that they're so good with writing characters that we actually care more about the characters leading up to it than we do, this big battle at the end. And honestly, I think that is their main issue with the two finales we've had so far, is that they're actually making battles that don't really need to be there. Like, especially for this one, it could have been a battle, but maybe not as long. And it would have been more interesting if it was a very, heated confrontation between Sam and Bucky, Carly, and John Walker. Obviously, it's great that there was action, don't get me wrong. But it just felt so quick. It felt like everything was rushed again, like it did in WandaVision. They brought things up in WandaVision and didn't close them out. They brought things up in this. They were closed out. There was some closure on characters and everything, but it was so quick, and it was like they didn't know what to do with it. Like John Walker's character. I loved that he made the right decision, but it just felt super quick. Killing Carly. It just felt like, okay, I guess that's the way it needed to go, but I'm not sure. You know what I mean? I feel like it just would have been better if they had an extra episode or something, but I just really wanted them to take their time more with these confrontations. You don't have to have a huge battle every time. Even WandaVision, there were so many unnecessary parts of that battle. We want to see more of what's going to happen to these characters. Also, the stupidest thing to happen in Marvel for a very long time is making Sharon the power broker and making her a villain. That's so dumb. It's so forced. It is so contrived. They're just adding stuff on just to make it interesting. At first I was like, whoa, and then I was like, okay, I don't really care, because first of all, to be honest with you, I'm not really sure what the power broker stuff is. That just might be me. I have to go back and watch it again, but I'm very confused on what the weight of that is. Having Sharon go off on her own and get really edgy and really angry because of what's happened to her, that's awesome. And the fact that she took people in, like refugees, in that time that, there was a snap, that's awesome too. And even if those, if the refugees, turned on her, or it's like she was teaching them stuff and then they, took it and twisted it. But the fact that she in and of herself is evil, that mid-credit scene is, you can't mistake that she's now, a villain. And I think it's really stupid. How do you guys feel about that one? Because that one's a really big, weird one for me. My only other low, and it's not necessarily low, but I know it's going to be for a lot of people, is that a lot of the things that they want to convey thematically are very on the nose. Specifically, the stuff that's about race and politics and letting people into the country, stuff like that. It is all incredible stuff to talk about, and I'm glad that they're taking this show to talk about it, because what other show in the MCU is going to do that other than this one? Because this one's literally about America. But there are a few moments throughout that are just so on the nose. It's gonna make those people who already don't like that stuff be like, oh, they're putting this even in the shows that I'm trying to escape America with, MCU stuff. They're even putting this stuff in there that's supposed to be just pure entertainment. People who are like, I don't watch the Oscars, they're too woke, whatever. Those people are definitely not going to be watching it. And even the people who do agree with that stuff are still even going to be like, all right, that's on the nose. That speech at the end, it was a great speech, and I agree with everything he was saying and all that stuff, but it could have been hidden in there a little bit more, other than just being in front of the cameras going, I'm Captain America now, and we got to let these people. I get it, but it could have been done, I think, a little bit more subtly. Not that it necessarily needs to be. It's like, hey, these are things we need to talk about, and that's great. But I think it could have been less all right, the plot's over, here's what we want to talk about. So overall, Falcon and the Winter Soldier is very funny, very well done story in terms of like ingraining real life things into the snap, and like even like bringing up all these logistical things that I was talking about when it first premiered. Do superheroes get paid? Where do they live? When people came back from the snap, homeless people were living in these empty houses. How do you fix that? All these issues that I'm like, I didn't even think of that. That's super intelligent. So they did a really good job with all of that. And it's very funny. I love when Bucky says the thing about he doesn't even think about the fact that he has the metal arm because he's left-handed. And my favorite funny moment is when the kid is like, "You're Black Falcon." And they go through that whole rant and he's like, "What would you be, like, black kid?" Like, it's so good because it's so true. And that shot, which is like the shot of the whole show, is John Walker standing there with the bloody shield. Such a good shot. I was in for that show. I mean, that was like halfway over by that point, more than halfway over, but I was in for the rest of that show after that. That was awesome. But at the same time, a little heavy-handed here and there, and I think the MCU honestly just needs to figure out their endings. And honestly, they really set themselves up for good endings. They just think that they need to do more, and I don't think they need to. I think they could pull back and it would be even better. Hopefully for Loki, which honestly, depending on what Loki does, it could be just a more fun, interesting ending, whatever. But for some of these other ones, like Hawkeye, if that's really that interesting, I think it would be better to have it be a smaller ending. I'm going to give The Falcon and the Winter Soldier a 3.5 out of 4. I saw this thing on Facebook, and I don't remember who posted it, but it was a really interesting point that they changed the title to Captain America and the Winter Soldier at the end, which is awesome because he's become Captain America. But that doesn't do justice to Bucky because now he's still the Winter Soldier, which has a negative connotation to it. So my first thought was change it to Captain America and Bucky Barnes. It's like, okay, now we've seen both of their character arcs. Then I thought, what about Captain America and the White Wolf? Because Bucky went from Hydra to Wakanda. He went from being this brainwashed, murderous maniac to a Wakandan citizen, basically, where he was cured. He got over that. That was his huge character arc, and he became like a person again. And in there is where he was deemed the White Wolf. So I think that would have been awesome if they made it Captain America and the White Wolf. So I'm a little disappointed that they didn't do that, but it's not really that big of a deal. All right, let me know what you guys think in the comments below of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Did it meet your expectations? How did you like the finale? And are you excited for Loki? Because I think that's going to be really fun. We still have like a month and a half to wait for that. Owen Wilson is now in the MCU, though, so that's pretty cool. Wow. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and TV shows right in the middle. I'll see you guys later.